Hi, this is Sean D'Souza, and you're listening to the 3-Month Vacation Podcast. This podcast isn't some magic trick about how to work less. Instead, it's about how to really enjoy the work that you do and to enjoy your vacation time. Do you know that ringtone? Of course you do. That's the sound of the Nokia. And that was the first mobile phone I ever had. And it was special to me because my friend and fellow cartoonist, Wayne Logue, bought it for me when I got to New Zealand. When we moved to New Zealand in the year 2000, I didn't know what to expect. We'd never been to the country. We knew nobody but Wayne. And even that relationship was a bit tenuous. I only knew Wayne through a forum, which was online, and that's how we got talking. I didn't know whether Wayne was a serial killer, and he didn't know if I was truly arriving in New Zealand. But he did something very special. He bought a bag full of goodies, everything that was New Zealand, Marmite, Red Sox, all the kind of things that you would think of as very Kiwi, and they were all in this laundry basket. He convinced the landlord to rent a place out and suggested that we would pay him when we got here. And then when he met me at the airport, he gave me this phone, the Nokia. The moment I stepped into New Zealand, I had a phone with the number I have to this day. But I don't have the Nokia. I have the number, but not the Nokia. And in this strange episode is the story of why you have to have a series, why it's crucial to have that series. You want to know more, don't you? Of course you do. Let's find out. Back in 1987, two brothers, John and Thomas Knoll, decided that they wanted to create a program which they could display grayscale images. And Thomas Knoll called it Display. But he knew it was a crappy name, so he wanted to change it. But every time he tried to find a new name, like Image Pro or Photo Hut, well, those names were taken. They didn't think much of the software. They thought they'd sell a few hundred copies. But here we are in 2024, in version 25.6, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, we're talking about Photoshop. And what is Photoshop but a series? We all know what series are, but the beauty of series is that once you get hooked onto one version of it, you want the second and the third and the fourth. In technology terms, it's called an upgrade. But this application, the concept of how to use series, is very crucial when you're writing something or when you're creating something for your business or to sell to clients. And so in this first part, we'll briefly look at what is a series. You know the answer already, but just for the heck of it, let's find out what's a series. If you listen to most parents today, they'll tell you that their kids don't read. And that's not true. One of my nieces, Marcia, has read the entire Harry Potter series. And the other niece, Kara, also read all the Harry Potter series. So it's not that kids don't read. It's that whatever they have to read has to be interesting. But secondly, and probably hidden, is this concept of a series. And they're reading Harry Potter. But when I went to school, I was reading Hardy Boys and Nancy Drew. We had a huge school library. But within every classroom, there was also a mini library. It was a cupboard full of books, and it was a lending library. My teacher got sick of me because I would want a new book every single day. I would read the book as I left school, and then I walked through the bus stop. And the reason why I was enamored with these books was because it was a series. I wanted to find out what would happen the next time, and the next time, and the time after that. We're so obsessed with creating one article, one book, one course, that we don't realize the magic of the series. Well, we do. We have experienced it. We binge watch, binge read, binge everything. And yet, we don't think of the series much, if at all. So the first part of this podcast is just to bring your attention to the fact that we all love a series, and clients are like you, and they also love a series. So it's pretty clear that we all like series, but then we have to look at what are the types of series. What are the types of series that we could create that not only gets the client's attention, but also keeps us completely in the game? We are on top of things, and we don't have to think all the time, what are we going to do next? What are we going to do next? Because the series determines what you're going to do next. About 9 years ago, a client insisted I write a book that would help him increase his prices. And this request confused me a lot because I had written so many articles on pricing. I didn't know what new thing I was going to add to the mix. And so I went back to the client and pointed out that, hey, I've already done all of this stuff and it's all over the place. And he said, that's the whole point. It's all over the place. And I would like to see it in one place and possibly as part of a system. And you know what? He was right. Because when I went back and I started to write a book, which I called Dartboard Pricing, it turned out to be 3 whole books. The first book was just the psychology of pricing, which is why do you go about increasing your prices, how the pricing model works specifically for your business, for your product, for your service, and why there are these 3 invisible gorillas in place and how most of us just ignore it. And we can't ignore it when we're increasing prices. And reading all these points seems like a sales pitch all by itself. But to put it in a nutshell, there were 3 books. And now we're closing in on the 10th year and those books continue to sell. Why? Because they're a series. People read one book, then they want to continue with the second, and then they keep going to the third. And who knows, if there were a 4th book, maybe that's how it would work. And if you think that was a fluke, it wasn't, because when you look at the storytelling series, you see the same thing. Book 1, book 2, book 3. They're easier to consume to begin with, because when you're faced with a book of 200 pages, that's a lot to consume. So even by virtue of reducing the size, people get to the end. And getting to the end is so crucial because it gives you satisfaction. And it's like having a little check mark. You've done it. You've got to the end. And while not all of us are going to write books, some of us are going to write articles or mini articles, and some of us will make videos or speeches or whatever it is that you're doing, because there's always a way to make a series. For instance, if we go to YouTube, what do we see? We see random videos, one after the other. And then somebody decides, no, wait a second. There is a system here, and they make a little playlist. But you as the creator can do that as well. Stage 1, stage 2, stage 3. And of course, if it's interesting, Harry Potter style, people are going to follow right through your whole sequence. And you could do this with articles as well. We had a series called Podcasting 101, which is how to start up a podcast. A tiny time-saving secret when starting up an interview podcast. Incredibly good reasons to start with an interview podcast. And also, when you go into 5000 BC and you look at all of the earlier articles, there was part 1, part 2, part 3, part 4, part 5. If you're writing for LinkedIn, if you're writing for any place, whether it's a newsletter or a physical document, people love series. And as I said, it's much easier to create a series than you'd believe. You don't have to think of the next topic because it kind of flows in from one to the other. Which means that the next time you're creating content, whether it's video, audio, text, or making The Lord of the Rings, think of it as part 1, part 2, part 3. And it could go to part 10 or part 12. And as you probably realize, this podcast is a series all by itself because we finished part 1, which is we looked at what the series was all about. Then we looked at the different types of series. But now we're going to look at series that you don't naturally see. You don't think of them as series, but they are series and you can use them to your advantage. Let's go to that third part. One of the more popular books is The War of the Art by Steven Pressfield. The book is strictly broken up into 3 parts, but under each of those parts, what you have is a chapter with a paragraph or 2, and then it stops, and then another paragraph or 2, and then it stops. Steven Pressfield didn't write this as a book. Someone sat down and thought about it and said to Pressfield, look, we could collate all of this stuff and we could put it together as a book. And we could create what seems like a series. That this is part 1, this is part 2, and this is part 3. And when you read it, it makes perfect sense. Because what you're really doing is the same thing that the client asked me to do with pricing. They said, you have all these articles, they're hanging all over the place, and all you need to do is just put them together in one system, one place, something that I can follow, because that is kind of the thing that clients want most of the time. They want you to go there and make it easy for them to follow that system. And even if you're giving it all away for free or have given away for free, when you put it together in a document, suddenly it changes perspective for you as the creator, which means that you can package it and sell it, as well as for the reader who knows that it's free but wants this version anyway. Another book, The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel. I really like it. Well, it's a whole bunch of articles and it's put together. But it's put together in a systematic way so that it flows like a series. If you're just thinking, okay, I'll just take all of my blog posts and throw them together and that's fine, no, I don't think so. I mean, I can already see that on your blog. What I want is some sort of categorization. I want you to think a bit. I want you to make life easier for me. And that's where the series really shines. So there are 2 ways to go about creating a series. One is where you go, I'm going to write Lord of the Rings, and from the very start, it's going to be a series. Or you go, look, this topic is too big. We're not going to have 250 pages. We're going to have 80 pages instead. Book 1, Book 2, Book 3. And it still goes up to 250 pages, but now it's a series. Or you just do what Photoshop did, which is you start something and then you keep upgrading it all the time and automatically it becomes a series. It started way back in the 80s. We're now 40 years down the line and that series is still going. And of course, now because of how Adobe has structured it, we're all paying for all the upgrades all the time. But it's a series, and it's a series that works. The best part about a series is that it's up to you. You can take work that already exists and put it together as a series, or you can decide, no, I'm going to write something as a series, and both of those ways work. The funny thing is, as I'm giving you this advice, I know that the best thing for me has been to write series. Every time I sit down and I go, okay, let me think of which article to write, I am stuck. Which podcast to create? Well, it's a lot of work. But if I were to sit down and go, let me do a series on storytelling, I think I could do that quite easily. And I think you can do it quite easily. So that's what this podcast is about. It's about creating a series. Go out there, do your Harry Potter. I'll say bye for now. But wait, what's happening in Psychotactics land? You know what's coming up on April the 27th. Here's the paper here in front of me, the little post-it. It says that there is a home study coming up for the article writing course. And the article writing course isn't just about writing. It's about doing something that is deep within our system, like drawing or speaking. We want to express ourselves. But writing does something else which is so phenomenal, and it makes us think. It puts together the thoughts that we have in our head in a way that AI could never do, because AI is just going to spit out whatever is there on the internet. But the ideas that you have in your head, you can express them in a way like nobody else can. And where it all falls apart is not having the structure. You have to have that structure. When you have that structure, then you take your ideas and you put it in that structure like a little machine, and it comes out like an article. An article that's easy to read, people love, and then they want to read more, and then you write a series, and you know where we're going with this. Anyway, that's it from me at Psychotactics Land. I'll say bye for now. And yeah, go to psychotactics.com/AW goodies. AW stands for article writing goodies, and you'll get your goodies. You'll be on the waiting list. Bye-bye, and see you in 5000 BC. Still listening? Every now and then my wife, Renuka, will get completely puzzled because I'll say, I'm headed out tomorrow at 3 o'clock in the morning and I'm going to Dusty's. Now, Dusty's is a bakery. It's about 30 minutes from here at 3 in the morning. And she goes, didn't you already go to Dusty's? Once, twice, 3 times? But she's confused even the second time that I go to the same place. Because what's the point of going to the same place? And as you can tell, it's a series. Every time something changes. So I've been to bakeries 3, 4, 6 times. And I've been to fire stations many times. I've been to any place that I can easily enter. I go back many times. Of course, once you get to know them, the entry is really simple. The first time is the hardest. The second time is easy because after they see the photographs, they say, come back anytime. And they really mean it because I enter from the back door. Restaurants, cafes, bakeries. I have even PIN codes for some of them so I can enter them at any point in time. But the point is that you can take series into art. You can take series into just about anything. And if you're interested in looking at some of the series on the photography that I've done, then there is the other show on D'Souza.com, and you'll see there are quite a few series there. So I'm not just saying this. I really do it. Bye for now, and see you in 5000 BC. Bye-bye.